All right, guys, I think we are live. I am obviously not Nate Zelinsky. I am the producer, Devin Menino. Nathan is currently on the road traveling right now, so he wasn't able to join us tonight. But we did a previously recorded clip on what we call the Obsession Dinner. And what it is basically a recap with hunters that we hunted with in the field in the past year, the animals harvested, talk about each one. We deep fried a ribeye. It was a good time, and we're going to cut to that clip. I want to thank Bowtech for allowing us to go live, as always. And always remember to text 77453. Text go live to 77453 for notifications of when Bowtech goes live on all their hunts. So thanks again for joining us, and let's clip over to the previously recorded video of Nathan.
Hey guys, it's Nate Zelinsky, and welcome to our Obsession Dinner. Guys, we call this the Obsession Dinner because, again, we have that obsession to literally refuse to follow. We have that obsession to literally let nothing stand in our way in our pursuit of big game animals. Every year, a bunch of us get together at the end of hunting season, and we literally just celebrate and kind of reflect on this year's hunting season, what we learned, the passion, the success, and we talk about the education and really the goals for next year, what we're going to do different, what we're going to do to achieve these same results next year. So I think everybody should do this, and welcome to ours. Guys, this year has been incredible with the release of the Realm and the Realm X bow, literally a revolutionary bow. I've never shot anything like this. Just so accurate, quiet, powerful, everything that I could ever look for in a bow, especially as a Western bow, to be light. The Realm has it, guys. It's the Realm X. It's incredible. And this year's dinner, we chose to fondue. It was like, man, you guys fondue, bunch of burly mountain men fonduing, but this year we're fonduing. We got to have your fondue stick. This year, our fondue stick is a Velocity 300. You got to have a nice fork on it. We're shooting a blunt as our fork, and obviously you got to have a big piece of meat. We got our prime rib down there at the far end of the field. So guys, this is our fondue dinner. Welcome to our Obsession Dinner, where a bunch of us are going to reflect. Now we got to put our meat on our stick. All right. Got our fondue stick, gold tip. Got our piece of meat, 6-pound prime rib. Sounds about right for a fondue. All right. Got our campfire, should say bonfire. Got our oil to 350 degrees. That's gonna be a little warm. 350, we got our meat on our stick. There we go. 12 minutes, the celebration of the success starts. I'm gonna use my mossy oak jacket for a second. Hoo hoo hoo. Prime rib and frying oil. That's fondue, isn't it? I mean, that's what I would call it. I am beyond excited. Oh, that is a tender, tender steak. Prime rib, fried. Guys, I think it's done. That looks great. Let's get inside and try it. Oh, let's go cut this up. Just perfect. Look at this sight. Big bulls everywhere. All right, guys. Like I said, tonight's a celebration of the obsession. The fact that there's hunters out there like myself, like Scott here. You've heard of Scott Sanborn, you know, as a cameraman on so many of our hunts. You've heard him as a hunter. You know, you do a lot of guiding from here and there with sheeprock outfitters, different portion of the state than we were hunting for all these animals. But Scott, you were involved on so many levels of so many of our animals: the sheep, the pronghorn, the deer, the elk. So you and I are sitting here literally with the obsession dinner is what we call it. Every year we sit down and we reflect on the bulls that hit the ground and the bucks. And obviously this year it was an elk-driven year. We had some serious goals, and we pulled it off. I mean,
somehow,
for the most part, somehow. You know, we set our goals high, and that's what our goals are every year. Not that, you know, you call it a trophy hunt, you call us trophy hunters, whatever. It's more the fact that you pick a select animal, the oldest, the smartest, the bulls that have been hunted for 9 years, 10 years, that have avoided the average hunter. And it's fun to chase those type of animals, and it doesn't always end the way that it ended for us.
Right.
I mean, most years, or a lot of years, we go home and we're like, man, where did he go? What did he do? How did we lose him?
Completely. Yeah, I actually ended up burning my own tag.
You did burn your own
doing
tag.
the same thing. Yeah, it's the one tag that I feel that I didn't completely fill this year with all the hunts that we had, and it was, like you said, one of those deals where you can chase and chase and chase till eventually you don't have anything in front of you on the last evening.
The last evening, it happened. But I mean, we got a lot of animals down. So guys, the idea behind this, we want to talk about styles. Obviously, we're here to rejoice. We're here to celebrate the fact that we put so many big animals on the ground. It's just, again, not so much about the trophy hunts, about the opportunity to chase elite animals per se.
Right.
You know, we're sitting here with what we consider our 4 top bulls. And you can't quite see these bulls. We're going to walk you through each one and their story. But these are our top animals that probably you and I shared a bond on the most.
Right.
And the reason you and I are sitting here, I think, more so than the fact that we spent, you know, however many days, 100 days together this fall hunting.
Completely.
We both have
good days too.
Good days, absolutely, absolutely. I had some good times. You and I have very different styles. There's no doubt about it. You are, I mean, you're a Marine, so hats off to you for supporting our country. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
And you hunt like a Marine. You are stealthy. You're the biggest athlete of anybody I've ever seen.
Well,
I hate following you through the woods. I make do, but I don't enjoy it. But you're all about the stealth, and we're going to talk about it here in a second. And then I'm the big clumsy guy. I like to look from 9 miles away. And both our styles, we talked about it, how, you know, we'd argue.
Right.
You know.
We do argue too.
Absolutely. Yeah. you argue on your styles, and there's no rights and there's no wrong. I think that's the biggest thing for all our viewers. Everybody's got their own style. You literally just take education, take that perseverance of hitting it harder, that dedication, and you put it all together, and once you kind of figure out your flow of your style, it leads to success. And everybody's got different styles. And, you know, like this bull that you're about to see in here in just a second, I would have had no chance at, because it's not my style of hunting, and your style of hunting is what it took to put that animal on the ground.
It comes a lot to luck, you know.
Luck or talent, you put a lot of animals down. So either way, guys, there's a lot to it. But the main thing we want to talk about is, how many times have you heard, Scott, you know, you hunt, you know, a million hunters. Do you hear the sob story of the lack of success? You know, it comes in forms of jealousy. I hate that. Everybody
it really does
hates you because we put big bulls on the ground and big deer. And
right. With that being said, yeah, and it makes it hard to really be able to go out and, you know, show off your trophy. There is a difference between showing off what you harvested and a difference between being able to show people what you actually accomplished. It is something special to be able to get something. Yes. Yeah, exactly. The goal that you accomplished. And so, you know, being able to get out in the woods and talk to other hunters, and, you know, anytime I see another hunter, I pull over and I try to talk to them if they're sitting there glassing, and just see what they've seen, see what they're hunting. I know that there's still that competition challenge with other hunters as far as, you know, you don't want to give away secrets or what you've seen out in the woods or whatnot, but it's always a nice thing to be able to talk to another hunter and just talk hunting. Sometimes I've been in some situations where I've seen some vehicles driving past throughout the week, and I know that they're hunting the same area I am. And I know that they're hunting hard. I may not know that person at all, but I know that they're hunting that area hard. So sometimes the first thing I'll do is I'll ask them what kind of tag they have.
Absolutely.
And they'll say a bull elk tag. I'll be like, me too. Good luck to you, gentlemen. That's all that I
you're not
wanted to
being
know.
mean. You're saying we have the same tag. Good luck.
Yeah. After the season, you know, here's my website. You know, look us up, and we'll get together and talk out. Like to know how you did. I love seeing all the elk around and what's been harvested. And so I do hear a lot as far as your question goes, as far as people that have actually not fill the tag.
That's it. You know what I mean? And you hear it all the time, and the success rate is poor. You know, whatever the national standard is, I think across the country, it's what people kill a bull every 7 years on public land. I don't know what it is. Colorado, Montana, Utah, whatever. Every state's got their own stat. But regardless, there's definitely that elite crew that harvests their success rates through the roof on all the animals they chase. And there's a lot of people that, you know, it's random that they're getting these animals. And I think the biggest thing we started talking about last week on the show, and we're going to start talking about it just bits and pieces going forth, is we're not telling anybody that they're hunting wrong. And we're not telling anybody that they have to go to this level of dedication. Because, I mean, it's hard to do. It's, you know, it's hard on families. It's hard with time in our busy worlds. But if you're the guy that can make some time, if you're the hunter that says, I want a big bull, I want a big buck, I just want to increase my success. Not saying you have to spend hundreds of days in the woods, but spend the right days and the right time in the wood, and you can literally be successful. So right now, you know, we're going in here, it's the 1st of December, so it's early December, and everybody that I know that's an elk hunter is done. The bow's packed away, the gun's packed away, the muzzler, all weaponry is out, you know, and they're ice fishing, they're whitetail hunting, they're mule deer hunting, whatever. I know when I talk to these guys, elk is the last thing on their mind.
Right.
I mean,
it
they're
doesn't
just
come
like,
up on the topic.
Yeah.
Or maybe about what they got that year.
Exactly. But their idea is shot. And it's that same guy that, you know, again, no matter what state you're in, Utah or, you know, Nevada or whatever, you know, you're all of a sudden putting in for tags of any species. And it's, you know, January, February, March, April, depending on when you're putting a tag in. And these guys are like, oh, tags are due next week. And they pull out the map and they're looking and they're like, well, we haven't had success here, here, and here in the last 5 years where Grandpa told me, let's try this unit. And it's totally blind, and it just keeps stepping on the ladder of that success rate. So, like right now in December, half of the bulls that we see live in timber. They live in gnarly areas. You know, we got to hike 1,000,000 miles to find these things, you know, because we're hunting public land. We got to get off the roads, get away from the people. But a lot of times this stuff can be rough and it can be physical. But a wintering animal, a lot of times comes to some softer ground.
They've got to think. They have, those animals are thinking survival.
I mean, that's it.
Pack on the pounds. Would you want to be hiking into the darkest, nastiest country to try and survive?
You pull down into the meadows.
Yeah.
So either way, this time of year, all of a sudden to where, we'll throw it into a ratio. So during an archery season, an August, September, you know, if you look in low country, you look in open fields, you're going to see 20% of the animals, and 80% are going to be in nastier country, dark timber, whatever it may be. You flip that ratio around to right now as these animals are in their wintering grounds. It's not like, I mean, in some areas, you looked at some gnarly wintering areas, and these animals might migrate 20 miles out of the area.
Right.
But most areas, let's look at the standards across the Rocky Mountain region. Most animals might only move a couple miles.
Right.
It's usually not going to be that dramatic. So
I would agree with that.
now all of a sudden, you're looking at these lower meadows, and we originally in, you know, July, August, September, we're seeing 20% of the elk, 30% of the elk. Now we're seeing 70, 80% of the elk. Only 20% are still in those remote areas. So now all of a sudden, by utilizing a winter count, you know, you talk to Parks and Wildlife, Division of Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, any of the government agencies, when do they do their counts?
It's usually 4th season or after.
4th season or after. The reason they do their counts in wintering grounds is because the animals are out in the open. It's the best time to judge the animals. Why are you, the hunter, not doing that same type thing? So again, right now you go out there and 80% of the animals are going to be in your field of view. So you can literally spend a day, a weekend, spend a week scouting new areas. I mean, you and I do it. You and I hunt the same, you know, 6, 8 units depending on what we can draw for tags. But even us right now, we drive to new portions of the state. You know, Devin and I running right here behind the camera. We spent a lot of time in Utah this year. We're not planning on hunting that even the next 2 years. But we're just like, hey, we need to start putting in some points. We need to start thinking about this. Right. So we drove around Utah looking at animals. And that's the type of thing to where right now, drive to a new area. And if you see big numbers of bucks, bulls, whatever animal you're chasing, you know they're going to be somewhat close. I'm not saying they're going to be in that exact spot come hunting season, but if you say, hey, this is more bulls than I've ever seen in my life, you start to have an idea of, hey, this is a good option for a hunt this coming fall. So now when the tags come around, I have at least a little bit of knowledge to say, hey, I know there's a ton of bulls here. I've never hunted this area, but I have confidence there's animals there. Let's put in for this unit. So instead of literally throwing the dart and doing the same thing that leads to lack of success. Now you at least have that plan. Hey, I saw animals here. I know my counts are good. It's the mature animals I want. And you at least start the whole entire scouting and preparation process instead of having that whim of let's try to go here.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge that people right now, literally everybody is in the holiday spirit. And I mean, definitely stay with your families, but sneak away for a day.
Take your families with you.
Exactly.
You don't have to go hunting. It's a lot of the times what I do in the middle of the winter is, I mean, like you said, we're out there a lot, and I spend my mornings generally almost all winter being with elk and looking at elk. And a lot of the times what I do is maybe just an hour. Those elk are still doing the same patterns. They're doing the same thing that they would do in archery season. Is they're out there early mornings and then they're back at safety. They still have predators in the winter.
Definitely.
Granted, they're a little bit more comfortable because there's not the pressure of the hunters, and it's nice to keep it that way. So don't go hunting. Don't go out there and try and get close and chase them around. Another problem with that is they are in their wintering mode, and they do need to pack on those pounds. The more they get stressed and chased around, the more that we are going to lose. But the biggest thing that I like to do is get out in the vehicle and just do some glassing, just do some spotting like that. Maybe find a rock that you can hike to that's close, go on an easy little trail to that rock, set up on it, glass around, see what you see. It doesn't have to be a full day of hunting. It's just an easy little outing.
And you talk about family. I mean, how many times this year, whether we're on Chad's sheep, our elk, our deer, whatever, how many times did our kids play Transformers in the back seats of our car? He's in his truck, I'm in my truck, and literally, we park as close as we can together, just offset to where we're both sitting there with our, our optics. I'm sitting there with behind the vortex, scouring 5 miles away. We can't tell it's this mature animal. We can just tell, hey, that's a big elk.
That's a big elk.
And then the next day we go look at them closer. But
if we have a babysitter,
our kids are in the cars. They're throwing stuff back and forth, but that's what makes it. The kids love it.
Gets them involved.
All of our families are going to be future hunters because they already love the aspect that we're there, and they're playing, and that's what they want to do. They don't want to be hardcore hunters at 2, 3, 5, 6 years old. They want to play around.
Yeah. You make hunting fun.
You make it fun. And this time of year, spend some time traveling to new areas. And I promise you, you're going to learn where animals are at. You're going to see the maturity of these animals. And more importantly, you're going to get rough counts. If you go into a big valley that looks like it should be holding winter animals and you see one, not so great. You start pulling in and you start seeing these winter bachelor groups of 15 bulls, 20 bulls, 30 bulls. Those are the type areas that say, hey, let's make a little note of that. Let's put in for that area in the future. Now, myself, this is where I lack a little bit. And again, as a hunter, every one of us wants to tell us that we're perfect and we have no flaws. It's what we are. But I watch the bulls a lot this time of year. I tend to fade out. I run a huge ice fishing circuit, so I ice fish all spring, and then I start walleye fishing in the spring, and I'm not in full hunting mode until turkeys and really until I start scouting elk in May. I miss a lot of times that February, March, April.
Right.
You excel at that point in time, and you and I talk about how you're finding sheds. And I think sheds, everybody wants to find sheds to, one, have decoration for their home, two, just have that hunting experience to find something. But like you and I talk about, sheds is the miracle to say, hey, this is what lived in this area.
Right.
And more importantly, when an animal makes it to shed stage, their success and survival rate of life is as high as it's going to get. It's the December, January, February where the wounds from hunting season of any weapon, they have their effect and their toll in January, February. The mountain lions are doing most of their hardcore hunting when these animals are in that winter groups, January, February. So a lot of the death of these animals as they lower to lower elevation, they get hit by cars. A lot of the death toll, naturally speaking, comes in that December, January, February. If they make it to that March to where they're dropping sheds, I think that once they drop sheds, there's a good chance they're going to make it to this next hunting season.
Typically, it means it's spring anyway.
It's spring.
It means that the forage is coming back for them to get on. The weather's warming up. They're getting longer days, more time in the sun. It feels better for everything. There's still those freak spring storms that hurt a little bit. I mean, when we're running cattle, I see it too. Spring comes out, things become happy. You see those first bluebirds and you know it's right there.
It's there, and that's where I lose it. So many hunters, again, talking about getting your families out, talking about learning new areas. the concept of shed hunting, and again, no matter where you watch this, make sure you check your rules, regulations. In Colorado, there's a lot of different management agencies of certain grounds that you're not allowed to pick up sheds. Good portion of Utah. All the states have their regulations on shed hunting. So before we go crazy with this, make sure you check your current regulations on what the laws are about shed hunting. But where you can do it, I miss out on a lot of that because I get tied up, and you excel at that. And I want you just to walk people through real quick. One, some areas that you look for. We're looking for meadows, south hills, whatever. But what does shed hunting actually teach you? How many bulls have you found that have led to patterns of bulls that you have harvested?
So in different units, I see different patterns. There's some areas that you see them only shed in those areas on lighter winters.
Okay.
And it's easy to put those bulls themselves in that area year after year. Okay. And I actually have multiple years of a bull
just
that is
growing
shedded.
Up.
Yeah, and it's really fun to see that too. And different sides of it that can almost match, except for one side's heavier than the other. Yeah. And so it's a blast to do that. One of the other things that I typically look for when I'm shed hunting is tracks.
Yep.
You got to have tracks. The elk, they still have the amazing ability to survive in some of the most horrible weather there is. So in the middle of the day when they are shedding, like I was saying, it's springtime, they're still finding those dark timber hillsides with the beds filled with snow and loving it. So you can find tracks there, and then you can start patterning tracks on where they're typically feeding at. Now, a lot of the times what I've found between sheds and come archery season is those elk are typically in those same areas.
Okay.
Where I'm finding sheds at, I find them there during the regular hunting season too.
That's great tip.
Summering grounds is sometimes the hardest to find out when they're in that full velvet, and in certain units that I've been in, I've noticed they're not really in those same summer grounds.
Summer heat, it gets tough. A lot of nocturnal animals.
That's a whole different area for them. And so the summer, I typically don't like to scout that much. I like to get a lot of my work done and everything, but the shed hunting time, it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of controversy, like you were saying, with sheds. I know, like...
don't harm the animals. Don't chase the animals. Don't knock them off.
That's the absolute worst thing.
You pick them up when they're laying on the ground, but do not harass the wildlife.
And you can find year after year sheds, and you can find some that have made it 2 or 3 years. You notice a lot of them get chewed up by rodents. I've read some good articles about coyotes being able to clean them up within a day. And they actually make dog bones and stuff for them and everything. So they do play a vital role in the ecosystem.
Of everything.
And so it's definitely, something that you can kind of take into consideration.
Like, I don't find many sheds, so when I find a 2x2, I lose my mind and I bring it home.
It's addicting. It's
He's
fun.
always like, dude, leave it for the coyotes and the squirrels. He's always yelling at me because I take home. I mean, I lose my mind. I don't find sheds because I don't go out in the spring.
I can't
say
I'm not
of
guilty
sheds,
of
so
it. It's fun. It's addicting. Yeah,
it's good to think that other animals are utilizing them.
Right. And so, I mean, you got to think of it on that aspect too. But like I said, I'm guilty of it. It's fun as can be to pick up a shed and take it home, and it's just as good as harvesting the animal itself.
It is.
It's fun. When you find a set together, oh man.
I know we found a moose shed together this year, and we're about ready to throw down fists. We were so excited, and we're looking for the second one. Now, guys, I know we're running short on time. I want to talk about all these bulls here real quick, but the other thing I want to talk about with sheds real quick is the concept of education. We always talk education. Everything we breed is education, learning everything we can about the resource, whether that's the land, the property, the animals, and the relationship between everything. The other thing that I think that blows my mind with sheds is growth. And we're not going to get too big into this. We're going to talk about this more in the next couple shows. But I think nobody realizes a big bull. Everybody thinks that the older the bulls get, the bigger their antlers get, as to where we probably have 2 bulls here between Ricky and RW that were both probably dramatically bigger the last couple years. Generally you get heavier horns, but they start losing length. You start getting big bows in the antlers. So these animals don't necessarily, most of these bulls are peaking somewhere between 5.5 and maybe 8.5, 7.5. Probably 7.5 is probably your peak age, but we're going to talk about that with a biologist here in the next couple weeks, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But with that being said, I think that's where sheds really can teach it, because all of a sudden you find, like you said, a bull this year, and then 2 years later he has a unique point, and you find him again. All of a sudden you're like, man, I can't believe how much growth this animal's shown. But more importantly, as they grow, you start to see the habits just with the sheds.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, he used to drop these in the middle of a meadow right next to the road. Oh, look at this. Now that he's a 5.5-year-old, he's on
smarter.
top of the mountain. He's dropping them in dark timber. So the simplest things of shed hunting teach you that education. So the 2 tips are for tonight. Number 1, scouting in these wintering herds, late November, early December, before the snow gets too deep, before it's hard to do so. Right now, the daytime temps are still nice. You can bring the family. Scouting on the first stage of the wintering patterns is huge to learn about the areas in which you're hunting currently and or are going to hunt in the future. Build that education. Hunting a springtime shed hunt to where you're out there in the spring looking for sheds, learning about the animals before they calf, before they move into summer patterns, is the same thing. You're going to learn so much education about these animals. It's going to make you a more successful hunter. Now,
and trying to leave them alone.
And leave them alone, absolutely.
You don't want to, it's the same as hunting.
animals.
You don't want to spook them. Even if you're just looking for the shed and you don't care if the animal runs away, it makes you a better hunter in the long run, and it's keeping our herds healthy.
Breaking patterns that you don't ever want to do.
Yeah,
so,
don't spook
awesome.
them.
Now, guys, we have 4 of our favorite bulls here. We got to try to keep this short. I know we're getting long, but I want to talk about a couple of the stories of some of these bulls. Guys, we did not talk that much about this. You heard about Jeremiah Blosser's hunt. Again, good friend of mine from Wisconsin. He came out, shot that pronghorn. We went out scouting. You saw the footage of the bulls going crazy that first rifle hunt in that draw. We watched this bull. We called him Mr. Narrow. Just a cool bull. And I think this one was probably the most entertaining because we got in the woods on this bull. You were out hunting as well, a different area. And Devin and I and Jared got on this bull like 3 hours before light, thinking we're gonna have to go a little further. It was like 30-mile-an-hour winds. And in our head, we're like, they're gonna drop to the bottom of this canyon. This canyon is like the nightmare of the world. And we're planning this massive stalk where we're gonna need like ropes to drop in on them. And we literally walked to the hill where they're at the night before, and there's 10, 12, 15 bulls screaming, cows everywhere. You could hear them like a herd. And so we literally lay down 100 yards from this herd for 3 hours. You know, you're trying to take a nap to pass the time. If you ever sat on a dark hillside for 3 hours waiting for light when you have bulls bugling, time stops. I mean, stops. So to hear these animals, and the whole time, you know, all of us are laying there telling ourselves, something's gonna change. The wind is too bad. You can never be a couple hundred yards from animals for 4 hours straight with something going right. Regardless, we made a stalk. We blew out one of the 15 bulls and got on this stallion of a bull right here. Jared made an incredible shot, and again, for a guy, this is his second bull. I've been with him for both of his animals, and this is his biggest animal, and just the experience. Again, I wasn't even near the trigger on this thing, and I'm high-fiving and, you know, almost in tears as much as he is. And
shaking like a leaf.
Just a tank, guys. Neat bull. Look how close that thing comes. When this thing turned.
I love that. How these are almost touching right here. That's got such good character. And his mass in this area is very nice.
This bull's bugling. Nice he turned at us to bugle, and he literally laid that head down, and he rubs on both sides. So he's really got marks on his hide from where this bull drops down to bugle every time he's bugle. Just an incredible bull.
Something special right there.
I mean, just awesome. Now, we got another neat bull here, Scott. You and I did this one together.
That was
we got an old hole in the horn.
It is. I mean, I actually learned something from you this season. I did not know this about a fly that can get into these horns. And I don't know if this is even visible, but this hole that's on this antler goes all the way through it. Completely through.
Get little bugs and just.
And I have a theory about it that he broke his antler in velvet.
Yep.
And it probably was opened up a little bit, and that's how that fly was attracted to it and bored a hole completely through it. I mean, one of those deals that is, if this bull was like this on both sides,
oh, he's just gigantic.
And I mean, what a great bull! A great.
I mean,
fish.
he's huge with one goofy side. I mean, he's a tank. But I mean,
got a little sticker
look at the
right there
on that bull. I
mean, that's an outstanding bull by anybody's means. But now here's something that we were talking about too. How would you score a bull like this? And some people would say this isn't cool, this is gross, this is nasty. To me, this is one of the coolest bulls. I don't have anything like this, and I don't think I could ever get anything like this.
No, there's one of a kind. You know, big sixes are big sixes. And
he's got little holes everywhere. I didn't even notice that when we got him. Just noticing this now. Every time I look at these, I can find something new.
I mean, that's it.
And
this is a neat bull. You know, every year you have the certain hunts, and of all the hunts that we were on this entire fall, the closest I personally was to elk for an extended amount of time was on this bull. I mean, I had cows. It was downpouring rain. We're still trying to put all the footage together, but I had cows like 10 feet from me, literally like chewing their cud, you know, moving their mouth, looking at me, while this bull and another bull are screaming bloody murder. And we knew this one was bigger. We sat down with our buddy Bill here, and I totally spaced out that he's left-handed. So I'm sitting here looking at this bull, and I'm like, man, just slide over in front of me and shoot him. And Bill's like, I can't, I'm left-handed. I'm like, what? And the cow is looking at me like this, like, what are those things doing? It's downpouring rain, luckily. We'd had no chance at this bull if it wasn't downpouring. And you're behind me, you're like, shoot. I'm like, he's left-handed. You know, like, you and I are like,
it's another one of those situations.
Problem.
Something's going to happen here.
Happen.
This hunt's going to fail in
and
some
finally,
manner.
this cow loses it, and she kind of perks up and starts trotting away, and I'm like, I'm just going to go crazy on the calls. I cow call, the bull turns broadside, Bill like does like a little, you know, maneuver, gets up and poof, hammers him. And
bad wheel Bill.
Again, thinking everything is going to go wrong, and it turned out right.
It turned out great. That was then fun stories after that. If anybody's ever tried to pack an entire animal into a vehicle without gutting it, you probably shouldn't do that.
Ugh, a lot is going on. All right, guys, now the bull we talked about probably the most of the entire season. Anytime that you talk about a bull as much as we talked about this bull, I think you're destined to not kill it. This is officially Ricky. You know, we saw this bull in June. You know, I called you, Scott, and I'm like, hey, man, I found a bull that is just incredible. This thing's obviously velveted up. He's maybe 40% of his growth the first time I saw him. And he turned out to be everything we had. And he would disappear for weeks on end. And we decided I'm going to take that third rifle tag. So I had a third rifle tag, and Scott and I are talking, and we had a great idea of where he's at. But still, the 5-mile radius that Ricky was running his entire life.
Yeah.
And we knew he was there. We knew he was making appearances. And you called me on a Monday and said, hey, man, I was on one side of the mountain, Scott's on the other, and he goes, I got him. And I'm like, are you sure? And he's like,
if it's not him, it's something huge.
Yeah, he goes, if it's not him, you got to come look at it. And we watched him for 5 days straight, and you're talking about talking to other hunters. We ran into other hunters on Friday that were beyond respectful. They knew we were going in after this bull. I was camped up on this bull, watching him every day that week, you know, for 5 days straight.
Followed you on your feeds.
They followed us on some of these live feeds, knew the history of Ricky, and they sat out for a couple hours that first morning while I had a first poke at him. And again, guys, have the respect for other hunters, you know, respect everybody, and it works out. But again, you know, we name the bulls, and you know, we've been getting a lot of grief about naming the bulls, and everybody, you know, says, hey, it takes away from the animal. And to be totally honest, I don't think we do it out of building a character out of the animal. The biggest thing, I don't want to sound petty, I don't want to brag. You and I might look at 200 bulls
completely.
in 6 to 8 units through the course of the season.
Completely.
If you just say the big six, are we talking about 100 of the big six?
Right.
So most bulls have a slight characteristic about them, and you give them names. I don't care if you name it bull 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or you come up with a fun name like Ricky. We're not naming them trying to jump on a bandwagon. We're not naming them to try to make history. It's more literally of a sorting process. When I say, hey, Scott, you know, you're hunting with your buddy's kid, or, you know, whatever. You know, we have a bull named whatever, Shorty. You and I aren't going to shoot Shorty, but hey, we just ran into a guy in the woods that's hunting with his daughter.
Right.
That's a perfect bull for him.
A colt.
And, you know, I can say, hey, go find Shorty.
Completely.
We know which mountain he's on. So we name him for more a sorting process of saying, hey, when you and I are talking about a big bull, you're not like, oh, the big six. Oh, which big six?
Right.
We know which one we're talking about. So that's why we do it. But regardless, guys, one last shot of Ricky. Big 6x7. Here's his goofed up side again.
So wide.
We talk about the hole in the horn in this one. The Boone and Crockett scoring system is not a fan of this, and we do not get a lot of credit for all this craziness. But regardless, guys, I
think they should have a bonus, a character bonus.
Bull of bulls. I mean, just wide. I can't even hold them up. Just a tank of a bull.
A characteristic bull. Very characteristic.
You know, we were talking about this. I've shot some big bulls, and this one here, whether he's the biggest or the most unique, he is special. Now, making his debut, literally his debut for the first time live in camera, we got RW.
Now, this bull, it really is his first time in front of a camera. This bull was 100% nocturnal.
I mean, living literally from June on in the dark.
There is a good chance that I might have seen this one. I know I've told you about it many a times.
Yep.
In winter of last year, one of those days in, I think it was mid-February or something.
Mid-February, just keeping track of these bulls.
And there's a good chance I might have seen him. There were 4 bulls that I saw in that unit that we were working hard, and one of them stood out to me as just something that, when you see a bull like this next to other ones, you definitely know that you've got something special there.
I can't touch my fingers on any point.
That's I was explaining that to some people too. Even this 4th point, I can't reach him.
Now, guys, the excitement. Everybody knows when you get that phone call. Whether it's a phone call that your buddy just had a kid, you get that phone call, you won $1 million, whatever. Scott called me and said, "I found Ricky. I got him." Literally a couple days after you found Ricky, you get the phone call, "Dude, I just saw a giant." I'm like, "How big?" "I don't know, man. He's big." And you're literally speechless. And we try, we have no service when we're hunting. You made, what, 90 phone calls over the next 5 hours trying to get a hold of me to talk to me about it. You hunted hard, and you didn't, we weren't able to fill your tag on this bull.
And this is part of the bull that I actually, ended up burning my tag on.
Burning your tag on, and then took a great friend who's a policeman.
Yeah.
Huge fan of working with all those guys.
So how this all kind of played out here was, I started off after you got Ricky. Yep. I had a tag in 3rd too, and so I was running around for myself, and I actually spotted 12 bulls.
Yep.
And it was like it just suddenly magically happened. They started wintering. They broke from the cows, and all of a sudden 12 bulls just showed up. And I remember we were arguing. We were talking about, would a big bull be with 12 bulls?
Yep.
And my dad and I were arguing about it. My dad, I mean, he's probably seen more elk than you and I could ever find in our lifetime. And he was telling me there's not a big bull with him, but I was just relentless to give up. And I ended up wasting almost 3 days of my tag trying to find these 12 bulls again. And from the way that they went, there was maybe 5 little bulls and then some bigger ones. And it all happened so fast. I was actually glassing through timber in a little hole with a spotting scope. And I saw one bull and then moved around, tried to find the rest, and just saw certain bulls, big antlers, walking through aspens. And then they're gone. So over the next 3 days, I'm trying to find all these elk, and I'm not finding anything, not a single elk, nothing but sign. And so I ended up giving up on it and went after other elk. I found another big bull that I sent you the video of, and ended up screwing up that hunt too. It's easy to do. And then 4th Rifle shows up, and a good friend of mine went to combat with, Mickey Shetzley.
Another Marine. Thank you.
He stand-up guy. Never been hunting before in his life for big game, and really wanted to go. So I told him when we got the time frame to do this, I would take him out on a hunt. We ended up getting the voucher and the tag, and I took him out, and his biggest thing was he wanted to learn hunting and be able to pass it down to his son.
When I ran into him, same thing, asking questions.
Yeah, totally. Asking the whole time and just constantly learning. And I told him from the start that this was a trophy late season hunt, and it was going to be kind of hard. We could maybe find a little one, but I don't want to find a little elk. No. It's not what I do. I want to find an old, mature bull that's ready to come out of the herd. And so he said, "Whatever, man, you're the pro. Let's go for it." And being the guy he was, I mean, there were days that another 2.5 days we did not see a single elk.
Like I went that same season 6 days without seeing a bull.
and you know what it's like, being the hunters that we are. If you don't see an elk in one morning of a hunt,
you're stressed.
Your depression, your stress, everything starts mounting up, and it weighs on your shoulders so bad, and you start losing it. And the guy
clicked heels with you the whole week.
He kept me motivated. Yep. He kept saying, "It's okay, man. I'm just happy to be here."
Stay in it. Head in the game is what puts animals on the ground.
If there was one person that deserved this bull that had never hunted big game before, it was this guy.
Guys, a Marine served our country with you side by side, and
put in so much effort.
So let's show this thing. We don't want to get too high. We'll be out of frame. I'll help you. I mean, guys, this bull, the width, I mean, massively wide. Tops, let's spin around and show. So, I mean, look at the mass, the girth. I mean, huge beams, huge fronts, great thirds for a big Colorado bull.
The mass
on the swords
was almost 12 inches in between these brow tines.
Let's spin around and show the other side. I mean, you can't even hold it up. We've got a 7 on that side. I mean, guys, literally, you're watching this. Public land. You dedicate the time and the energy. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but if you want one of these, we're not paying 50 grand. And we're not hunting, you know, all this crazy stuff. Public land, you can do it. And then if you want to go on the guided hunt, you also do guided hunts where you're not hunting with all of us filming, you know, sheeprock outfitters. But regardless, guys, all these bulls here are public land, fair chase, easy to draw tags. I mean, nothing, I mean, these bulls are all special.
Right.
And the fact that we spend time and dedicate is special, but the land and the tag is not special.
Right.
Spend time in the woods, you're going to get done, guys. And right now, literally, I am standing here with Scott Sanborn with the Big Bull Award. You got it. I mean, the biggest bull killed that I know of anywhere in 2017 is this RW bull. I mean, the fronts are massive. I mean, everything about this bull is huge.
His swords are unbelievably just strong, and they don't look like they're that long from all the weight in there, but I mean,
they're
like,
huge.
When you start grabbing this bull and getting your hands on him, and we were saying it the whole time as we're loading him up in the truck, he just keeps getting bigger.
Bigger and
and
bigger.
most of the time, you don't have that problem.
No.
Most of the time, you're like, he's starting to get smaller and everything, but when it comes down to it, this bull was so
guys,
old.
Look at that. I mean,
His bottom lip had been split open from fighting and healed back up. And his nose here was actually broken. That's not a problem from boiling his head. It was scar tissued over when I was boiling it.
Just a warrior.
The teeth on his bottom were, you showed the picture of that,
Yep.
were so wore out. He had one solid tooth on his bottom jaw. One solid tooth, and it was loose, and I mean, the poor guy was having a hard time.
He was on his last leg.
He was definitely on his last leg.
Man.
And you know, to be able to get him on the last morning of the last season, and you know, it sucks burning the tag, but this was all worth it. And to see Mickey and how happy he was, and I mean, that was worth anything more than me getting him.
Guys, this was the obsession dinner. This is what we're talking about. Everything you saw the passion. I mean, you see these giant animals that we're putting down. Guys, we're going to leave you with that, but it's all possible for you, the hunter. Spend your time. Big lessons tonight. Do your scouting in these wintering herds. You saw more than likely this bull last year in your winter scouting. Do the shed hunting for the fact of learning the animals, learning education, learning growth, and learning daily habits. And the biggest thing, guys, keep your head in the game, put the dedication there, and I promise you, it's all a learning curve. Once you break that learning curve and you're willing to put in the time and the patience, don't burn out, don't quit. And it's all possible. So guys, Scott, thank you so much for the filming, for the hunting, for the friendship, everything we did this year.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me on all your trips, and
so
we'll just keep it going.
Keep it going, guys. All right, guys, that was tonight's show. I appreciate it so much. Huge thanks to Bowtech Archery for letting us go live from their platform, as always. Guys, again, we can't do it without them, so huge thanks for the platform. And to all of our other partners, Mr. Heater, Bass Pro Shops of Denver, guys, and everybody else. Huge thanks for going live with the show. Hopefully, we built that education and making you a more successful hunter. Stay tuned next week. As always, this show is always live at 7 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday evening. We'll see you next week.